Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. In today's episode of D&D Horror Stories, we have quite a grab bag of stories, ranging from stories that will make you say, "What were they thinking?" to stories that will just make you cringe. One thing is for sure though, it will definitely make you have a newfound appreciation for your current game of Dungeons & Dragons or whatever tabletop RPG you may be playing at the time, when compared to the stories you are about to hear. But before we get to them, Nipsey has something he would like to ask.
Subscribe and click the bell. I really like this bed.
Thanks, Nipsey. Remind me to give you a soup after the video. But with that cuteness out of the way, let's get right into the cringe. DM flirts with her own kid at the table. By Reddit user 3 of Swords. I made the mistake of playing at a table where the DM was also the mother of another player. The son had just finished high school and was by every legal definition technically an adult. Early on, it was apparent that he was receiving special treatment. His character got to go on personal side quests outside of our party sessions to obtain a massively overpowered custom homebrew magical item, a staff of teleportation. But it wasn't just any staff. Nope. This staff could teleport his level 3 character up to 3 times per combat. You read that right, per combat. He could also use it to teleport creatures, no saving throw, up to 120 feet away. This item would easily be a wondrous or god tier item, and he used it constantly. Nepotism aside, the dynamic between his PC and the DM PCs, his mother, was also unnerving. For whatever reason, DM was constantly finding reasons to flirt with her own barely legal son through NPCs. One of the worst occasions I can remember was when an NPC kept circling the son's PC and commenting on his bulge and codpiece. Going so far as to actually invite his PC to sleep with them. The rest of the party would just sit there awkwardly while mother and son role-played flirting, which happened surprisingly often. I guess his player character was also super hot. I'm not going to think too hard about it. TLDR. DM seems a little too invested in her son's character, leading to repeated uncomfortable flirting and wild nepotism. Well, that certainly was a story. I understand that roleplay does not equate to real life, but really? Plus that item she gave him was way overpowered. I guess Mama just wanted to please her special boy. Let's not just move on, but let's run away from this story, and onto the next one. That time, my DM added being a sex doll to my backstory. By Reddit user Lady Likes Spiders. So, this was a while ago, but I've been wanting to post this. Back in 2020, I had a GM who wanted to run a Ravnica campaign. Not my thing. I kinda hate the setting, but whatever. D&D's about hanging out with people and making character arcs. I like to try and make unconventional characters, which is maybe a fault of mine, but I decided on a Warforged samurai fighter named Marie. She was a robot maid who fought with a glaive that was actually just a long feather duster with a retractable blade. Her backstory was that she was commissioned by a high-ranking member of the Izzet League, a Magitech faction for those who don't know, specifically as a protector and steward of their home. The Lord had a wife and a son, Aiden. One night, the manor is attacked by assassins, and the parents both die, leaving Aiden as the only surviving heir, with Marie tasked to protect him. She and her charge go into hiding while she tries to find out who the assassins were so she can ensure his safety. Before we started, I told the GM my concept. We discussed the character and talked about her and the other characters with the other players. And I specifically told him how I knew that my character would be kink material, but that she was specifically ace and didn't have any genitals or anything. She's basically a super advanced Roomba who has to take care of a 10-year-old. So in game, my little lord has to remain kinda close to me. I hid him away in combat, but the assassins are always after him and I have no idea who they could be. The point is, the kid's always by my side. So there's this demon orgy going on. Well, this sure took a turn, huh? That the rest of the party is kinda stuck doing, but I had the foresight to not take a 10-year-old boy to. Instead, we meet up with an old contact and a friend of the kid's father. With the kid present, he proceeds to spew out some backstory about how I was a repurposed sex robot. Mind you, the kid is still there, but it's not so huge a deal if you don't traumatize the kid. I told the other character not to say anything, and that was that. Would have been played for awkward laughs. It's a way better alternative than what could have happened, because I had to remind my GM that we were not at the demon orgy when he mentioned someone going towards the kid. I'm not a person who shies away from not safe for work stuff, but I do care about my characters. I specifically did not want her to be this, and had told the GM prior. My biggest regret is not calling him out at the table for it, and instead just rolling with it, but it made me angrier than I expected it to. Ultimately, we just finished the campaign, but I won't be sitting at his table again. My character got none of her plot hooks. No assassins, no struggle for succession, or even to be able to properly go through the kinds of arcs that I wanted them both to go through. She was supposed to be a helicopter mom who had to learn to be less toxic, while also just generally developing emotions and such. As a whole, his campaign was kind of not that fun. Some good scenes and encounters and such were here and there, but this was a guy who just wanted to drop all of the Magic the Gathering fan service on a bunch of people who never played it, while disregarding all of our own plot hooks in favor of a big Save the Multiverse story that none of us were really invested in as players. Man, that is a shame. OP's character and backstory definitely would have set the stage for some cool arcs and character development if it was in a game with a good DM. Though, it sounds like this DM didn't take any of that into account, and just wanted to inject cringy boner humor. And to try to interject that her Warforged used to basically be a sex doll, when OP explicitly said not to do any of the sort, also shows that the DM didn't have any respect for boundaries. I would say to OP to keep that character concept in mind, and to try it out again with a DM that actually cares about running a game with good story and characters. Let's move on. Torturing a child is something a good-hearted rogue would do, right? By Reddit user Rivers Twisted. This is a milder story, but it happened recently and I want to talk about it. I want to preface this saying that if all of the group is in agreement on how they want to play a game, then there's no point in telling them that they're having fun wrong. That being said, they were dicks to me, so I feel like it's fair game to vent about them. I was looking for a campaign to join as a player, since I'm normally in the forever DM chair. I found an interesting game about a Robin Hood-esque band of thieves and good-hearted criminals, so I joined the Discord and introduced myself in the introduction channel. Nothing too in-depth, just where I'm from. I'm Canadian. This will be relevant in a bit. And my general D&D experience. I decided to play an Oathbreaker Paladin who ended up being branded as a criminal because he refused to abide while those he served exploited the people. He confronted his master and in the ensuing confrontation, killed her. The other players had been a group for a few months, so they already had their rhythm and I was an outsider coming in. Game day comes and it's pretty fun for the first hour or so. Then, when the party encounters a street urchin collective that is picking pockets around town and had stolen a key that the party needs, one of the party members suggests torturing the child until he gives it up. The rest of the party agrees, and I'm not really cool with that, because the kid was like 7. I object, saying that torturing a child seems pretty extreme, and asked, weren't we supposed to be like Robin Hood style, take from the rich and give to the poor? The rest of the party just groans, and one calls me a lawful stupid paladin, which makes no sense, cause I had earlier beaten the shit out of a guy in a pub. One player goes, "Oh, no wonder you're no fun. Canadian goody two-shoes." All in all, they were mocking me for being against torturing a kid. The DM said that as most of the party wants to do it, he was going to allow it. He said that if I really wanted, I could attack the party to get them to stop. I was honestly tempted, but instead, and I admit I handled this part poorly, I called the party assholes and left the voice call. I then sent the DM a message saying that I was clearly not a good fit for the party and thanked him for his time. TLDR, party of supposed good-hearted Robin Hood rogues decide to torture a child. Mock OP for being against it, and OP angrily responds in kind and quits the campaign. It sounded like OP came across the party that had so much edge that they advertised for that one razor company that bases its ad campaigns on shaving balls. And by the way, currently looking for sponsors. I mean, even in other media, often the bad guys won't do something like this. And this party is supposed to be the good guys? I don't blame OP for leaving like he did, especially after one of the party insulted him due to where he's from. And at least he was polite when he messaged the DM of that game. More people need to take an example from this OP. If you're in the game and immediately see a red flag like this, just nope the hell out of there. No D&D is better than bad D&D. Now, after those stories, I think we need a kitty intermission to help boost the morale to get through the rest of the cringe.
What are you guys doing?
It's like getting a shower after a long hot summer day. Now for more D&D cringe. Player manipulates and lies to his friends for over a year. By Reddit user False Epiphany. Compared to the other horror stories I've read, this one isn't especially over the top, but it's the morally worst thing I've seen a player do. First strike, second chance. It starts a couple years ago with a new player that we'll call Blue, who's in high school and younger than the rest of the group. His introduction to the game starts off okay, apart from how he cheats on the first major dice roll. I know this because he subsequently and routinely gets incredible results on all of his rolls, and two other players independently approach me about how suspicious this is. He's able to do this because we play over a chat client without a built-in roller and rely on the honor system. I confront the player and he fesses up. I also cheated in a game when I was his age, and so had one of the other players. I give him a second chance, after finding him some XP so that there's a fair price for the benefit of the artificially inflated rolls. I later catch some XP incongruities on his sheet that may be more cheating or just poor record keeping. It's impossible to know. At this point, he doesn't get the benefit of the doubt, so I kick him. He's incredibly distraught and tells me he's terrified he's going to spend his life alone because he keeps lying to people. The third chance. About a year later, Blue messages me out of the blue, to apologize for his earlier behavior. He says he's now in college, met new people, and broadened his perspective, and really regrets how he behaved. I tell him I'm happy for him and accept his apology. Some months after that, a mutual friend runs a game we're both players in. I have a blast gaming with Blue, and he seems like he's really matured as a person, so I invite him to rejoin my game. Blue is a wonderful player, passionately into the game. I love his player character and the storyline we're playing out together. We become friends outside of the game and have hours-long voice calls. He gets along equally splendid with other players. We introduce each other to favorite films and shows and have movie nights watching them together. It was a really happy time for the game. Blue is also a computer science major. We switched platforms to Discord around when he rejoins, and he writes a custom dice roller bot that does useful things no other bot does. He also writes a bot for people to store their character sheets on. One of our players, newly returned from an extended hiatus, doesn't get along with Blue, so I have a conversation with him about why. This is when he tells me, "The last strike." I really don't want this to be true, but I tally up all of Blue's dice rolls and find he's never gotten a botch, the World of Darkness equivalent of a natural 1. In fact, he's only gotten low results on rolls he didn't think were important. Everything else had been, at minimum, just high enough, sometimes through luck, sometimes through the expenditure of willpower, but always a result he was happy with. I confront Blue, and he admits to rigging the dice bot. It gives him whatever results he wants. We have been playing with the bot for close to a year, and he has used it to falsify the roll results of at least one other player. I also find out that the character sheet bot lets him read the other player's sheets, when he assured me that it did not. For context, this is a political intrigue game that's included PvP. The player characters don't belong to a party, and the players and GM keep tons of secrets. Mystery and paranoia are big components of the game's atmosphere. The sheets are kept secret to foster said atmosphere and avoid metagame knowledge influencing player decisions. "I read all the other players' sheets" is nearly as huge a taboo in our games as the roll cheating. One of our players kept basically all of her plots and secrets recorded on her sheet, some of which she'd been extremely successful in hoodwinking other player characters over. One player, who is a rape survivor but long since moved past it, tells me she feels incredibly violated by what Blue had done, as she had also become good friends with Blue. To crown it all off, Blue admits, after I ask, to reading some of the GM-only setting books from which I pull lots of characters and plots. Resolution. I take a long time deciding what to do. Everyone thinks Blue's response comes down to crocodile tears. It's incredibly telling that he went through this song and dance once before, got kicked out for lying, and felt horrible about it, well, horrible getting caught, then knowingly did it again anyway. I tell him that it's impossible to trust him again, and kick him out, again. I was never angry, just sad. I can't emphasize enough what a betrayal this was. Our game is 7 years old, and I've known 2 of its players for 12 years. They are some of my oldest and closest friends, and we are very selective about who we admit into our social circle. I thought Blue was one of us, but that all turned out to be a lie, because he valued high dice rolls more than our friendship. It's been over a year since I booted him from the game, and retyping this still makes me sad. I would have given him a 4th chance if I thought he'd learn from his experiences, but the only thing he learned was how to be a more effective liar. TLDR. Player becomes good friends with a group, then cheats on rolls for close to a year. Well, that is kind of sad, and I don't blame OP for not giving Blue a 4th chance. OP did continue in the comments of the story that Blue claimed to have OCD, but was never properly diagnosed with it. But with the way he perpetually lied about things, it's kind of hard to believe. Even if he did, it still doesn't excuse the bad behavior. He purposely developed the dice and sheet bot so that he could manipulate everything, and that just breaks the trust of everyone in the game. Plus, a little inside baseball here. I myself do have OCD, and yes, it is a pain in the ass and can make some simple tasks be a whole thing. But from my personal experience with it, it has never caused me to lie or be shitty to any of my friends. Hopefully Blue learns from this and changes his behavior towards people in the future. But if this story is any indication, I wouldn't hold my breath. Let's move on. Stealing the spotlight because I gave someone else the final kill. By Reddit user, Ugly Lampshade. So, this happened a week or so ago. We played a one-shot online with level 14 characters. We had agreed with the DM that optimization was fully on the table, and I turned up with a Valor Bard that mostly supported our frontliners. The problem player was our Lockadin, a Warlock Paladin. The whole point of his character was fishing for critical hits, and then using Eldritch Smite and Divine Smite to dish out huge damage. The DM had laid out an extensive dungeon for us to rip and tear through. It soon became apparent that he felt obliged to tell us exactly what to do. When an enemy misty stepped away from him, he told the DM that he wanted to attack because he had Sentinel. After being told that he couldn't because it was a teleport and not movement, he sneered at me. OP, counterspell it. I told him that he wasn't going to kill it next round anyways, and that it wasn't worth it. Alright, I thought you played a support character, but fine. Here's the kicker. Once we arrived at the boss fight, it was some kind of devil, he still hadn't gotten to really show off his smiting potential. Therefore, I teleported into the enemy's reach and used the help action on the paladin to attack the devil, in addition to giving him inspiration. I then stepped back and described how I taunted the devil, only to drop my sword and held out my hands, stepping backwards to provoke an opportunity attack, whilst winking at the paladin. He said, "Oh, I get to make an attack?" And he rolled. Natural 20. The DM described how my risky play allowed the paladin to carve the fiend in two with the power of heaven and hell. I was overjoyed as I managed to do exactly what I wanted, help others play their characters as the epic hero they imagined. "Does my sword carve through OP's character as well?" the paladin asked. The DM looked confused, and I was dumbfounded. No, why would it? The paladin sighed, and in character, he grumbled at me to not get in the way of his monster killing. We ended the session pretty soon afterwards, but the following day, I woke up to a bunch of messages that I hogged the spotlight and made his character seem like a pussy for relying on your character. I knew for sure that I'm not playing with this same group again, which is a shame because the DM is awesome. TLDR, I used the help action to let someone finish the fight, and I got accused for spotlight hogging for it. So, let me get this straight. He wanted you to help him before, but you tactically didn't, and he was upset. Then you actually do end up helping him to get the last hit on a big bad, and he complains that you got the spotlight. Yeah, I wouldn't want to play with this dude again either, as he's screaming, "That guy." Though, why leave a game where you really like the DM just because of one asshat? I'd say show the DM the message that you got from Paladin, and that's why you're considering leaving, and see if there's a way to reconcile differences. And if Paladin keeps being a dick, maybe he'll get kicked and you can stay with a DM that you like. Though, that's just my thinking. What do y'all think? Do you have a story of playing a tabletop RPG that just made you want to leap out of your own skin? If so, and would like this Doge to read it in a video, be sure to post a link in the comments on the d&Ddoge subreddit, or even feel free to message me on Twitter. As always, I appreciate all of you, and let's check up on Nipsey. He really likes them things. Until next time.